it's a bye week after the international tournaments. There's a pause in play in the NWSL as well. We're seeing the CBA get utilized, being put into action. There's within the contract that there needs to be a break in the season, for players, and quite frankly, that's important. So, coming right alongside the conclusion of the Concacaf W Championship, and thankfully, because of this break, it gives us the opportunity to talk about all of this stuff, and that includes some news that has also dropped shortly ahead of this break. And one of the things I think that stood out was a suspension for Angel City sporting director Eni Aluko. She was suspended ultimately for entering the field on the July 9th match versus San Diego Wave FC, and she'll be serving the suspension during the Angel City home match versus OL Reign on Saturday, July 30th. So that sort of dropped, and we were like, okay, but violation. They have it within the release of the reasoning why and per rule number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But something interesting to sort of keep an eye on. Jaedyn Shaw. I mean, this also dropped kind of in between a time where you were just coming back in, from into work, Lisa, while we were still kind of in the middle or tail end of Concacaf W Championship. So it was a wild, wild time. And I know you and I both have some thoughts and opinions on this, but Jaedyn Shaw officially signing with San Diego Wave FC, the 17-year-old midfielder out of Texas, a US U20 star. It's her first professional contract. It is going to be through 2023 with no option year, turning 18 in November of this year. But it came into light when the league opened the discovery process for Shaw, rather than forcing her to wait until the 2023 draft. She's someone who's been actually training with the Washington Spirit for the last 6 months. But because of the discovery process, San Diego was ultimately able to obtain the rights to this potential player, and now has been officially announced with San Diego.
So this was, for those that are maybe hearing this news for the first time or really have some questions about it, Jaedyn Shaw is a young player that Olivia Moultrie walked, so Jaedyn Shaw could run, perhaps, is the theme here behind this. Because Olivia Moultrie, another incredibly young player that has been training with Portland Thorns for an incredibly long time. And Mark Parsons, former head coach of the Thorns, fought to get Moultrie a contract previously, a year ago. The NWSL said you couldn't play in the league until you were 18. So now things have opened up and things have changed in that sense. But with this 17-year-old Jaedyn Shaw, she forego her NWSL eligibility because she wanted to play professionally. And head coach of Washington Spirit, Chris Ward, welcomed her in the spring of 2022 for preseason to start training professionally and train with the Washington Spirit. And as a player in Jaedyn Shaw, you're now training with the reigning NWSL champions and essentially the same squad that won it. So what an incredible environment for Jaedyn Shaw to be in. Conversations had started talking because you had to be 18 in order to enter the draft, and the draft will be in January of 2023. And she doesn't turn 18 until November of 2022. So there was this push spearheaded by Shaw herself, as well as Chris Ward, to open this discovery process for her, to allow her the opportunity for teams to sign her. Now, when a player enters the discovery process, it doesn't mean that Washington Spirit just gets to sign her, because the discovery process works in that once a player is in there, the number one team in the discovery lineup, I'm not entirely sure the terminology. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sandra, but the number one team that's in there gets their first pick. And that just so happened to be San Diego Wave FC. And instead of bypassing on Shaw and then Angel City bypassing on her, and then so on and so on and so on, until Chris Ward and Washington Spirit could sign Jaedyn Shaw, San Diego Wave FC, Casey Stoney, saw the opportunity in signing this incredibly young, talented athlete, Jaedyn Shaw, and having them join the team. And Shaw also said yes. So there's like a double whammy process here of how this all happened. But this is an incredibly good player. She's a midfielder. She can score goals. She's done it at the youth international level. When she was just 15 years old, she was invited to train with French club PSG. And just the talent level, the experience that this 17-year-old already has is tremendous. And then the fact that San Diego has picked her up, huge. I think that's huge for the team, for San Diego, for the league, and for this player. But is it almost like a backstabbing of Washington Spirit? What are your thoughts on this one, Sandra?
Wow, I like that. A backstab.
I don't know. I said almost, because frankly, like, she had the free reign to do this.
Yeah.
San Diego has the free, that's the part of being a professional athlete, to sign someone like this, despite having spent the last 6 months with Washington Spirit, who also wanted her, who pushed for this and wanted her.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of I mean, that's part of the energy around this, right? You know, you're inviting a player of this sort of caliber, or the with the potential high ceiling, let's just say, because we've yet to see the young Shaw go out and play a pro match at this level. But you're putting in work, you know, for the potential for a player to hit their ceiling. And quite frankly, the Spirit have done a good job drafting young players and developing them. You know, we have seen the rise of Andy Sullivan. We've seen Ashley Sanchez and her ability, Trinity Rodman having her breakout season with the Spirit last year, going all the way to the championship, winning a championship with this young core of players, and Rodman also picking up Rookie of the Year honors. And I think if you have these types of players that you can point at and say, hey, you come train with it, you'll be a champion. You know, I think that's a hell of a great sales pitch, quite frankly, if you're the Spirit and you are on that end of looking at recruiting and scouting. And yeah, you're talking about months, months and months that have been spent with a specific franchise. And I gotta say, when the news dropped, it threw me a little bit, because you brought up Olivia Moultrie, and I'm glad that you did, because it was quite the roller coaster for Moultrie's entry into the league, and that also included a discovery process in which OL Reign took the rights to Olivia Moultrie. So, you know, we're looking back at that and thinking, you know, is there perhaps a bit of gamesmanship there? And looking, fast forwarding now to this, shout out to Jason Anderson, colleague out of DC area, tweeting that a source with knowledge of the talks over Shaw's rights between San Diego and the Spirit. At one point, San Diego's asking price was $250,000. And Olivia Moultrie's rights, 3rd-round draft pick. Yeah. So I'm wondering, like, the level of maybe gamesmanship perhaps in this. It rubbed me the wrong way. I'm not going to act like it didn't. And I was like, wow. I was like, that's certainly a starting point for when you're talking about negotiating. Like, that's, I guess the concept is, let's aim very, very high and then go from there. And unfortunately, I think it didn't sort of pan out maybe the way the Spirit were possibly anticipating. I think my initial reaction to this, like, I, you know, tweeting out Twitters for the jokes, and I'm just like, wow, like, there's a ton of like energy that's similar to, like, didn't do the work in the group project, but showed up with confidence on presentation to demand an A+ type of energy from San Diego here. And I'm just kind of like, I respect it, ? Like, it was weird for me to process. I was just like, well, okay. I said, they took the rights of this discovery rights of this player. It's within the rules. That doesn't mean that people aren't gonna you know, find criticism within it or say that feels kind of weird and wrong. just because it's like within the rules, that doesn't mean that it's not going to have a certain type of perception, especially when you have reporting around it talking about how high
Yeah.
the price point was at one point, and ultimately how things didn't work out for a team that had already been working with this player for 6 months. And I think you can also maybe sort of see that within the contract um, of Shaw with San Diego. The fact that there's the opportunity to play professionally. She doesn't have to wait until that 2023 draft, but it is only through the 2023 season. So it's only through next year with no option. So what's that going to mean, in the future for a player like Shaw, in the landscape of the league in 2023? That I think it's still a little bit of a TBD.
Yeah, and
For
I'm not that surprised that her contract is only through 2023 with no option. Well, I'm surprised that there's no option, but I'm not surprised that it's only a 1-year contract, because as a player that is so young, it's a very big difference jumping into the professional game, especially into the NWSL, and especially seeing how well San Diego does this year, right? Like, they've been number 1 in the standings for 10 weeks. So this is a good team that Shaw is going to. And for
Oh,
Casey
yeah.
Stoney, first time coach in the NWSL, the 1-year contract is, I think, fine for this type of player.
Yeah. Because quite frankly, it goes
You
back
don't
to what
know.
I initially said. I mean, yes, is this a player that a lot of people are high on, have watched in the youth programs and are very, very excited about? 100%. But you don't know until you know, unfortunately. It was a lot of similar energy around a player like Trinity Rodman.
Yeah.
There were a lot of pundits, and myself included, who thought that she went really high in that initial draft. I thought that maybe she would need some time for development to transition into the pro level. She absolutely went out and did that. That is what she did. And unfortunately, you just don't know
And became
until
rookie
you
of the
know.
year. And you don't know. And maybe Shaw will be rookie of the year or
Yeah.
something, which is incredible. But we don't know. We don't
We
know.
just,
So I
yeah.
think
So
the
it's
1 year is fine. The no option, maybe a little bit surprising, but I'm fine with the 1 year.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to hopefully see this player get some time soon, and then we get to sort of see in action how she fits with this San Diego Waves. I mean, they're number 1 right now. They're top of the league. They've been putting together a very strong campaign in 2022. Does something like the arrival of a player like this disrupt what San Diego has going on? Casey Stoney just doesn't strike me as the type to completely sort of revamp her plans for this team moving forward.
I
So,
think Shaw's got to get some training under her,
yeah,
right?
I absolutely trust Casey Stoney
Yeah.
to go ahead and handle this situation 100% well. So I'm eager to sort of see her kind of worked in and sort of her introduction into NWSL, but definitely a type of headline where we were like, this is very, very interesting. Let's talk about it a little bit. Some other signing news to close out the episode with Kansas City Current announcing the signing of Claire Lavogez. I believe I'm Lavogez. We want to try to get it correct here on Attacking Third. So thank you for including the pronunciation within your press release, Kansas City Current. Shout out to y'all. French midfielder who plays with Bordeaux and the French national team signed with Kansas City through 2023 with an option for 2024. Going to be joining the team ASAP, quite frankly, and potentially going to be seeing her getting some minutes against Orlando, but who knows? Again, we'll see. But that's the earliest we can see her arrival or her debut will be Sunday, July 31st, potentially against the Pride. So,
Yeah, it's
of
a
course,
huge signing. I think this is huge for Kansas City as a team and a club that is really, they are not just saying they want to win, but they're actually like putting their money where their mouth is and continuing. They're on a 7-game unbeaten streak right now.
Yeah.
Like, they are cruising. They haven't lost since May. They've put really good pieces into place. They've traded for certain players. Now they bring in Lavogez to come in and spice up this midfield. And I just imagine a player like Lavogez, who's played her entire pro career in France. So all of that experience that this type of player brings to the NWSL game. And then you slot her in the midfield alongside players like Lola Bonta, Victoria Pickett, Desiree Scott. The options are endless for this team. And Matt Potter is just dripping in gold, and all of the different players and the skill sets that he has. This is a huge move for Kansas City. And I've been very impressed with what they've been able to do on and off the pitch, whether it's with their facilities, the players that they're bringing in this French international, Lavogez, how they've been able to play and compete on the pitch, going into big arenas like Lumen Field and come out with results. The ownership, it's really just been a trickle-down effect. And that's what the players have said when we've spoken with them, that they feel that the ownership wants to win and wants this club to be the best in this league. And that's how the players feel in terms of respected and the equipment that they're given and everything that they've done for them. And man, this Kansas City team is fun to watch. So huge acquisition for Matt Potter in the side for sure.
Yeah, this is a team that I'm keeping an eye on as they start to make their march in this second half of the season. I think getting Sam Mewis back into trainings, right, is a huge positive sign. And the fact that they are also boosting up that midfield core heading into this very exciting stretch of the season, I think is going to be really, really crucial for Kansas City. So we'll see how this pans out for them coming up. But that's going to be it from us today on our episode here. We hope you all enjoyed catching up with the two of us and on all the news and notes across NWSL and all the action across women's soccer globally. Another reminder before we close out, again, I know we've been harping you about this all month, but we're always getting new people introduced to us. So if you're new, welcome. Thanks for joining along with the episode. But we're nominated for some awards, the Best Female Hosted Podcast category in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Go and vote for us at podcastawards.com/app/sign up. Toggle down to the Female Hosted Podcast category and click vote for us. And you can also vote for us for the World Soccer Talk Best Podcast. Vote for us at worldsoccertalk.com.